Hello, divine creations, divine marvels, sons and daughters of God, Son of God. Hi, great to see you again. um, who are we? What are we? Well, here's what the Course says. You are the work of God, and His work is wholly lovable and wholly loving. This is how a man must think of himself in his heart, because this is what he is. A creation of God. Holy. I'm going to get the words exactly right. Wholly lovable and wholly loving. That's what you are. You can't, I'm sorry, you can't be anything but that. But we can sure cover that up with other things, but we can't change that fact about ourselves, no matter how hard we try. And boy, have we tried. So that's what we are at our root, our base. But what are we on a day-to-day basis? Well, the Course, in just literally 2 paragraphs, gives us such a clear description of what a human being is in terms of life here in the dream. Okay, so miracles come from below or subconscious level. And by the way, this is the HLC, chapter 1, section B, verse 28b. Miracles come from below or the subconscious level. Revelation comes from above or the superconscious level. The conscious level is in between and reacts to either below, or superconscious, above, impulses in varying ratios. Consciousness is the level which engages in the world and is capable of responding to both. Having no impulses from itself and being primarily a mechanism for inducing response, it can be very wrong. The deeper level of the subconscious always contains the impulse to miracles, but man is free to fill its more superficial levels, which are closer to consciousness, with the impulses of the world and to identify himself with them. This results in denying himself access to the miracle level underneath. In action, then, his relationships also become superficial, and miracle-inspired relating becomes impossible. So on a fundamental level, I'm going to speak more on relative terms now. What we are is consciousness. And that consciousness can respond to one of 3 things. To God, which it calls revelation from the superconscious level, from the subconscious, which contains both miracle impulses and what it speaks of as worldly desires, and or the world, things we perceive as outside of ourselves. So consciousness has no volition of its own other than really which of those 3 things, God, revelation, miracle or distorted miracle impulse, or this world we perceive around us. So we really, in a sense, we don't have so much of a choice in terms of what we do, but a choice in terms of what we align with. And what we align with will then determine what we do. So, okay, so that part's easy. The one part where it gets a little subtle, so revelation is clear. That's like oneness. That's the thing that we can't talk about. I mean, we can try, but what about the sub? So that's what Jesus calls the superconscious level. But what about the subconscious level? Well, that's where it gets a little tricky. The subconscious is just the impulse to miracles, and miracles is the impulse to unite. However, that impulse can get a little twisted and distorted. So I'll read a little more. The subconscious impulse, Revelation induces complete but temporary suspension of doubt and fear. It represents the original form of communication between God and his souls. Okay, so that's nice and easy, just like this clear connection to God. This involves an extremely personal sense of closeness to creation, which man tries to find in his physical relationships. So this is where the miracle impulse begins to get distorted. This level of closeness that we feel with God, then people seek that feeling of closeness out in physical relationships. Physical closeness cannot achieve this. The subconscious impulse properly induces miracles, which are generally interpersonal and results in real closeness to others. This can be misunderstood by a personal, willful consciousness as impulse towards physical gratification. So we basically, we can commune with God, or we can connect with the impulse to unite, the miracle impulse. And we can misunderstand. So that's the subconscious, and we can misunderstand the miracle impulse. That's really where most, if not all, of our suffering comes from. Misunderstanding the miracle impulse, the impulse to unite. And as it says here, miracles are impersonal, but then we can get confused and then, seek out that closeness in a personal sense. And that's where we really get in a whole lot of trouble. That's not to say that it's wrong or people shouldn't do that. And in a sense, a huge part of the Course in Miracles is about how to have a holy relationship. Now, holy relationship doesn't necessarily deny sexual impulses or deny, in this misunderstood miracle impulse. It isn't just for sex. It's for special intimacy, one-on-one intimacy, closeness. So it's not to say we shouldn't do that. And in fact, a huge part of the Course is about how to work with this in turn, because misunderstood miracle impulses, the desire for, special intimacy, is really, in a sense, the root of all of our problems, because only God is going to solve our problems, and we try and solve the fundamental problem through interpersonal relationships, and it doesn't work. It actually just creates more separation. The Course says the special relationship is I have to paraphrase, I can't remember the exact quote, the ego's number one tool for keeping us out of heaven. So we want this, and we seek it with other people, and we don't find it, and then it just creates more separation. And so that's why so much of the Course is about the holy relationship, because this very primal, the primal drive for miracles gets distorted, and then it just becomes this thing that leads to further and further and further separation. And so there we go. In 2 paragraphs, basically, Jesus explains what a human being is and really where all of our problems come from. Love to hear your thoughts and feelings on it. Hope this is helpful. And again, this is out of the HLC. Which, the first couple chapters, the HLC just really nails it. And the HLC is very similar to the version called the original. Not exactly, but reasonably similar. And the Sparkly. Those are all very close. highly recommend anyone who's been reading the FIP to check out the first 3 chapters in one of those versions I just mentioned. And so what I read was chapter 1, section 2, paragraphs basically 28. Yes. All right, miracle workers, go take on the day. Work miracles, find peace, reconnect to God, the one answer to all of our questions and the one answer to all of our problems. Mwah.